The Reds were shorthanded, but went toe-to-toe with one of the hottest teams in baseball. Let's talk.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds with myself, Jeff Carr, and my co-host, Stephen Offenbaker. We are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans that have turned an addiction to this team into information for you. I want to thank you for making time out of your day to listen to us talk some Reds. I encourage you, if this is your first time, make sure that you follow us on your favorite podcast app and right here on YouTube. We're going to be with you every single day, win, lose. There's no draws in baseball, so you can't really say win, lose, or draw, but we're going to be with you every single day because we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And on today's podcast, we are going to recap this series, look back on the fact of the performance that the Reds put on. The Reds have won the season series with the Philadelphia Phillies, and these last 4 games have been a slog for a team that is constantly going through something, whether it be illness, injury, something. And it seems like they just continue to overcome it. We are also going to look at the gauntlet that begins today. There's quite a gauntlet coming up. And we're going to dive deep into the pitching matchups and stuff like that as the Reds head to Arlington. Before we get to all of that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150. Win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And where we're going to get started here today, Steve, is with Splitsville. The Reds are in a split with the Philadelphia Phillies at Great American Ballpark. Very interesting split, very bipolar split. In fact, I would like to take this moment to say that the 2 games that the Reds lost, you were with me to record the podcast after that game, and the 2 games that the Reds won, I recorded solo, so maybe there's a pattern there. I don't know. Like, is there something there?
Well, first off, you're off to a great start. Let me just say this now before the comment section comes at you, that there are ties in baseball. The last tie in 2016 between the Cubs and the Pirates. Back before lights were commonplace, there were ties all the time because they just stopped when it got dark. And then, of course,
the Cubs and the Pirates were.
And then, of course, Bud Selig never met a tie that he didn't like, especially in the All-Star game. So there are ties in baseball. That being said, you're right. You're on a little bit of a heater yourself. The Phillies were the hottest team in baseball. You, for a minute there, are the hottest solo recording host on Locked On Reds. That's fine. I'll accept that. But let me tell you something, Jeff. I was excited that they managed to pull off a split in this series. I know I can hear people. I sent a tweet out on X yesterday that there were a few people that pushed back on because, I was happy to get a split. When you consider the fact that this team came into the series already without 33% of the team that it was supposed to be, already holding a series win against these Phillies, the Phillies having won 6 in a row before the series started, and then this illness starts running rampant through the clubhouse of the Reds. You take all of these factors, and it just looked like a series that was primed for heartbreak and a beatdown where the Phillies were going to come in here and just do major damage, and the Reds kept that from happening. For me, the fact that they managed to get out of this series with a split to maintain the season tiebreaker with the Phillies, which could become important later. This is a big deal. It's not optimal. Of course, I would have loved to have won the series, but given everything that was going on in the periphery during this series, it's tremendous that they were able to get this done. I said in my tweet, they won this. They split this series with one arm tied behind their back, jumping up and down on one foot.
Yeah, and it's funny because I would have said probably about 3 days ago, I would have said, well, and they're giving almost everyday playing time to Santiago Espinal, but he's basically one of the biggest reasons that they won those 2 games.
You hurt his feelings. You hurt that dude's feelings, man.
He went off in this series. Like, the Phillies are just happy to get out of town and not have to face him anymore because he has just had a couple of games here. But he is the biggest reason, and I talked about this on yesterday's episode, the biggest reason to look at this Reds roster and say it's not at full strength because he wouldn't be here if it was. They wouldn't have traded for him if it was on opening day. And now he's getting everyday playing time because India's hurt. I mean, the reports were that India lost 8 pounds over the last 8 weeks, or the last 8 weeks, the last week when he was sick. So this, whatever's going through the Reds clubhouse right now is very serious. And I'm glad that they were able to pull this out, and the importance of this split. As much as we would have loved to seen the Reds win on Thursday and take 3 out of 4, they already took the season series, which means at the end of the season, whenever both the Reds and the Phillies have 100 wins, then the Reds are going to win that tiebreaker. I'm just kidding. They're not going to have 100 wins, but the importance of that cannot be understated.
No, and you know, this baseball schedule is wonky now. I don't like that we're done with teams in April. I don't like that, but you know, I'll take it.
I also don't like the fact we've had like one division series all season so far.
Yeah, I agreed. I don't like that we're done with teams already though, Jeff. And if we do have to be done with teams already, I like that we're holding the tiebreaker. So for me, there was a lot of things in this series with the Phillies that jumped out as progress, as moving forward. We saw that Nick Lodolo, while hitting a rough patch in an inning, was able to battle forward through it. We saw that Espinal can turn it on when he needs to. We've seen Elly De La Cruz continue to do these things that, you know, I heard you on your solo show talk about. He even has surpassed what you were doing for bold predictions. He's blown past that in some regards. So for me, there's lots of positives to look at and lots of things to be excited about as this team heads down south to take on the defending world champion.
Yeah, I just for a moment too, because I was talking about this a lot with a friend of mine while we were watching the NFL draft, which, by the way, go check out our friends over at Locked On Bengals for more on that. You realize on, what is it now, April 26th, Elly De La Cruz has 15 steals. FanDuel had his over-under for steals on the season at 42.5. He might have
All-Star
that before
break.
Memorial Day.
He might. He'll have it by the All-Star break for sure.
He is all over it. And I think that like FanGraphs only projected him to have like 35 steals or something. It's just like nobody knew how good he could be. But the other thing for me in this series, and I talked about it a little bit yesterday, Fernando Cruz might be the best relief pitcher on this team, and it's because he has the best pitch in baseball.
You know, the thing with Fernando Cruz that I've been thinking about, and I saved this for when we were recording so that you could react to it in real time, is all last offseason, you kept talking about how Fernando Cruz, in many regards, had a better season than Alexis Diaz last year, as good as Alexis Diaz was. You're looking pretty prophetic right now. So hat tip to you, because there is absolutely no way that Fernando Cruz is going to get sent down.
No, he can't, because he is the most trustworthy dude right now. Like if there's a jam that David Bell needs to get out of, I think immediately he looks down at Derek Johnson. And he's like, "Hey, is Fernando ready?" And Derek's probably like, "Well, you didn't tell me that you wanted to get him up, so let me go get him up, and then we'll get him in the game." But that split finger is so ridiculous. Like, I forget the number of times he has now thrown it on the season, and he has yet to allow a hit, and he has a swing and miss percentage of over 3/4 of the time. Like, Steve, I don't know if you know this or not. If you throw, or not you, Fernando Cruz, throws his splitter 4 times in at bat, he gets 3 swings and misses. What's that called?
It's a strikeout, Jeff.
It's a strikeout. That's what he's averaging as far as his swing and miss rate on that splitter. It is just phenomenal to see what he's doing. And really the bullpen as a whole in this series, albeit Casey Legumina got his brains beat in game 1, but that, I mean, he was here to kind of help facilitate into this series and the way that everything moved with the Frankie Montas injury and stuff like that. And now Sam Maul is back, and Sam Maul looks fine. So this bullpen continues to round into form. And I thought that they were a bright spot in this series as well.
Yeah, I did want to make mention of Sam Maul returning. Clean inning for the most part. He did walk a guy, but he struck out a guy. Perfectly acceptable, perfectly fine debut for Sam Maul. I think that having another valuable lefty in this bullpen is a big deal for the Reds. I think that It's definitely a long way from where they were just as recently as last year, as far as the left-handers go. It's a nice luxury to have.
Alex Young is sitting on the IL just like, seriously? I was getting my brains beat in last season, and you could have had 3 guys on the bullpen. How about that? But no, this was a fantastic series, and all the more reason to continue being super bullish on this team.
And real quick, before we get out of this segment, Jeff, just a couple more bullpen notes while talking pitching. The Cincinnati Reds moved Alex Young from the 15-day to the 60-day. With that back, I don't know that we're going to see Alex Young anytime soon doing any baseball work down there in Louisville. Who we are going to see down in Louisville is Ian Jabot, who was sent on a rehab assignment to Louisville. I imagine Ian Jabot will be ready in a week or so. I imagine that's how that's going to play out.
Yeah, I think they'll probably start working in some back-to-back days and things like that, because that's where they were, and then he had a flare-up, and yeah, we should see him pretty soon.
All right, Jeff, we've been talking about how April was important because the end of April and all of May is just, going to be like the Reds running a gauntlet. And coming up, we're going to break down exactly what this schedule looks like. We've got that coming up next. This Mother's Day, get something thoughtful for mom on DoorDash. Surprise her from wherever you are with fresh bouquets, the latest tech, gift cards, self-care treats, and more to make her day that much better. Use code LOCKEDONMLB to get 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flower, convenience store, grocery store, or retail order on DoorDash. Pair flowers with a gift card so she can celebrate any way she wants. Is she a bookworm? Try a bookstore gift card. Does she love a good latte? Get her a gift card from her favorite coffee shop. You can't go wrong. Plus, you get the convenience of shopping on your phone so you don't have to be the one scrambling around driving to find the thing you want for mom at whichever store happens to be open and may or may not have what you like. Get something special for your mom today. Trust me, I've been there. Sorry, mom. It was a long time ago when I screwed up your gifts. Order now and get everything you need on Mother's Day from DoorDash. Use code LOCKEDONMLB to get 50% off your next order when you order $15 or more for your flower, convenience store, or grocery store orders. That's LOCKEDONMLB at DoorDash today. Terms apply. Have you been watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV and have to turn down the volume because of all the shouting? Well, make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you the can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news you're looking for. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Jeff. Here's the deal. The schedule is hard. There are some tough series coming up. It's going to be a minute before things get any easier for these Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah, we are talking about everyone they face. I mean, looking at the next, 3-4 weeks, the Reds really, the next 4 weeks, the Reds are facing either playoff teams or 2 teams in the San Diego Padres and the San Francisco Giants that just barely missed the playoffs. This is going to be a gauntlet because you start with the defending World Series champions this weekend. And while you're probably getting them at the right time, you're not facing their pitching staff at full strength. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more ad nauseum in a few minutes. There's still a tough lineup, and that's going to be the kind of lineup that the Reds pitching staff needs to be on point against. And then you go to San Diego right after that. So Sunday, you finish up in Texas, then you head out to San Diego Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And the last couple of years, San Diego has not been a kind city to the Cincinnati Reds. And normally West Coast road trips aren't, because you go to the Pacific time zone and all this other stuff. But it just feels like every time they go to San Diego, it's not that they get clobbered. It's not that they get bludgeoned. It's that every game is super, super close, but the Padres always end up winning. And so you leave it just feeling deflated. And that is kind of just how they start this gauntlet, and it gets a lot tougher from there.
Yeah, once they come back home from that road trip, they're off on Thursday the 2nd, and then here we go. 3 games against the Baltimore Orioles, day off on Monday, 3 games against the Arizona Diamondbacks before, I don't know what the schedule makers were thinking, going back to the West Coast without a day off to face the San Francisco Giants in San Francisco, and then stopping off in Arizona again before doubling back to Los Angeles. It just keeps coming, and it just doesn't make sense. And you think, wow, once they get through all that, they're going to come home again. It's going to get better, right? No, because they come home again to play a 3-game set against the San Diego Padres at Great American Ballpark, and then 3 games against the Dodgers at Great American Ballpark before finally, for the love of God, we get some games against the National League Central with the St. Louis Cardinals coming to Great American Ballpark to wrap up the month of May.
You know, I kind of forgotten which division we played in for a little bit there, Steve, because we hadn't played our division in a long
Clearly,
long
it's the
time.
National League West. We're
Yeah.
clearly playing in the National League West.
Telling
Like
you,
the old days.
That's how this feels. But yeah, like just breaking this down, looking at these opponents. I mean, I mentioned these next 6 games, but then you come back home to face Baltimore, who is a World Series favorite, Arizona, who was in the World Series last year and was still looking pretty good this year. Then you got the Giants in San Francisco, always a weird environment and a tough series for the Reds to play. Then you go to Arizona. The Dodgers they're not playing like it right now. They've kind of hit a little bit of a bump in the road in the season, but it's a long season. They're going to win 105 ball games. And then you got the Padres again. There's a lot to this, and this is where we said. This is where we said you come out of this stretch. You get the Memorial Day. That's basically what we're looking at here. If you get to Memorial Day at 500, you're kicking with gas, because through this stretch, and the fact that they're starting it already just 3 games over 500, it's nice that they built just a smidgen of a cushion, because look, this is going to be frustrating. This is going to be a stretch that I'm not saying that I expect them to lose, but I'm not expecting them to come out of this smelling like roses, because if they do, then oh boy, we're talking about a much better ball club than we really ever could have imagined that they could be. Because this is the ultimate test. This entire season, there's not a stretch that is this long and this tough the rest of the way.
You're absolutely right. And there's a lot of interesting things, because, I mean, you know, we got a home and away with the Dodgers in May. We're done with them. We got a home and away with the Padres. We're done with them. We got a home and away with the Diamondbacks. We're done with them. You're absolutely right. If this team can be 500 heading into June, and a lot of the heavy hitters are already off the schedule, this team could still run away with the National League Central. And just as an aside, because it's fun for me, Jeff, if you've ever doubted whether or not the powers that be within the Reds organization may check out our show from time to time, I want to prove it to you right now. May 27th, Memorial Day, the Cincinnati Reds host the St. Louis Cardinals on, are you ready for it, Senior Day. Yes, sir.
It's kismet. That's perfect. That's amazing.
Perfect.
That's the best way to end all this, because yeah, like, and to be honest with you, like, I laid out the resumes of all these other teams, but don't forget the Padres, the Diamondbacks, and the Giants were all right there with the Reds at the end of last season. The Padres owned the tiebreaker, and I think the Reds had the tiebreaker over the Diamondbacks, and then I think they also had it over the Giants. The Giants were like 3 games behind the Reds, so that wasn't as important. But as annoying as it is to say that these games this early count very importantly at the end of the day, they need these games, Steve. And look, I'm not expecting them to own the tiebreaker for the Dodgers here, but you kind of need the tiebreaker with the Diamondbacks and the Padres, because they are playing like they're going to be in this wild card race all season long.
Oh, absolutely. They're playing in such a way that they can position themselves. They're primed. And I want to reiterate, Jeff, because they're all going to be off the schedule for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
I can't say how important that is, because think about this. June rolls around. That's the projected return month for Noelvi Marte to come back to this team. This team gets better.
TJ
We
Friedel
assume
should be back.
Friedel should already be back. And this team begins to move forward. And then Matt McClain comes hopefully August, beginning of September. And this team will be loaded and ready to go and playing the easier opponents on the schedule. It's just, usually these things go against the Reds. And I feel like even though May is brutal, it's going to help the Reds long run. It's going to help them be able to be in a position to even if, because the Brewers and because the Pirates and because the Cubs aren't playing everybody bunched up in May like this, even if they pull 3-4 games ahead, let's just say, plenty of time for the Reds to make up this ground. And while all of those other teams are getting their heads bashed in by these guys, we're done playing them. So I think it works out perfectly.
Yeah, this is going to be a huge test. And by test, we mean if they pass, they come out of this at 500. We cannot reiterate that enough. We're not going to be sitting here and be mad if they're like 2 or 3 games under 500 or something like that at the end of this. That's going to be right where we expect them to.
It's in the window. It's in the margin of error.
It's in the window, exactly. But you know what, Steve? The series here that begins this stretch provides some opportunity for the lineup. We'll talk about what that is coming up next. Head over to FanDuel right now. I've got a parlay for you that I have been working for the last couple of days, and it has paid out. By the way, if you're new to FanDuel, you can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. All you have to do is go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and place a $5 wager. That's $150, whether or not this parlay hits for you. And by the way, it's hit a couple of times. It's my Elly parlay. Listen closely. 2+ total bases, 1 stolen base, 1 run scored. It's hit 2 out of the last 3 games, and it has paid dividends. Trust me on that one. Check it out over at FanDuel. Again, new users can get $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's at FanDuel.com/lockedon. What are you waiting for? Head there right now and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. You can catch every pitch of the Reds' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Reds. Also, make sure you bookmark si.com/MLB/Reds for written content about your Cincinnati Reds. Gonna have a lot of stuff coming for you over the weekend. A lot of great stuff looking at this stretch and looking at what the Reds can do during it, and a couple of expectations that I have for them. That's coming up over on si.com/MLB/Reds. Make sure you bookmark it today. All right, Steve, 3 games in Arlington, Dallas, whatever, Rangers, something like that. I was told that there is a joke. If you call them the South Oklahoma Rangers, they really don't like that. So I mentioned
down
that.
There.
Yeah, probably.
That could provoke violence, sir.
Probably provoke violence there. But no, the pitching matchups in this provide an interesting opportunity for the Reds lineup in that we don't have to see the dreaded lefty.
No, and it's actually some interesting pitching matchups. First, Evaldi's going against Ashcraft in the first game, and just for me, I think back to Evaldi World Series past, and in
Nathan Eovaldi, by the way, yeah.
You just picture that heroic extra inning World Series game that he hefted the Red Sox on his shoulders for. So I'm looking forward to seeing him pitch live. I'm looking forward to seeing Graham Ashcraft live because I'm heading down to Texas, Jeff. I'm going to jump on an airplane. I'm going to go check out this series. So I'm excited for that one. I like that the Reds are not running into a left-hander. I've been saying all along that until everybody's back, the best version of the Reds lineup is when there's a right-handed pitcher on the mound for the other team. And that's going to hold true for the entire weekend. Game 2, Jeff, old friend alert, Michael Lorenzen versus Hunter Green. I may try to stay out of direct eye contact with Hunter Green because if he has heard me beating on him a little bit, I might be in trouble. But I'm looking forward to this matchup too. You said off air, I'll say it on air. Oh man, if Michael Lorenzen outpitches Hunter Green, the comment sections are going to burn down again.
Yeah, the comment sections, Reds country as a whole is going to have a hard time swallowing that pill, especially the fact, Michael Lorenzen was a late addition for the Rangers here in spring training. They've really been kind of going through it with their injuries. The optimal Rangers rotation and the current Rangers rotation is vastly different because they would have Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer if they were healthy, but they're not because those guys have had trouble with health in recent years. So the Reds are kind of getting a couple of guys that wouldn't otherwise be there. And like you said, you're getting the right lineup. For some reason, David Bell only has enough confidence in putting Elly in the 2 spot against righties, but that means he's going to get to do that all 3 games this weekend. Hopefully he can gain some confidence to just leave him there. I mean, he did it all spring training. He even said it in an interview. This is probably what I'm looking at. And then he put him in the 6th spot with no protection whatsoever behind him, whether, it be a struggling Santiago Espinal or, all manner of people in a slump. If you put him in the 2 spot, then whoever's third, which is usually Spencer Steer, probably going to bring him home. And if Spencer Steer can't, then CES can. So I love him in that 2 spot, and I really want to see him remain there. He will get to this weekend.
Yeah, then in that 3rd game, Andrew Abbott on the hill for the Reds facing Dane Dunning. So I like the Reds' chances in that one. Sometimes those early start getaway days, it kind of messes with the visiting teams, but I have a good feeling about this. I'm not calling for a sweep, but I don't see that the Reds can't steal 2 out of 3 down in Texas. And if they can do that, that's going to start that murderer's row that we talked about in the last segment off on the right note. They're going to need to steal a series or 2 through this stretch in order to hit that 500 number that we're talking about. And looking at the schedule, this series in Texas may be one of the best ones for them to pull that off and get the momentum going.
Yeah, and 2 out of 3 would put you at 4 games over 500 heading into San Diego, give you a nice little cushion there. I do think, and there's a lot of boppers in this lineup for the Rangers that we're going to have to watch out for. The Rangers are an interesting lineup in that they sort of mirror the Reds a little bit. Obviously, they still have Marcus Semien and Corey Seager, but a lot of their big boppers are starting to get a lot younger. Talking about, Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford and, Adolis Garcia is still a pretty young player as well. So there's going to be a lot of young talent, a lot of the whole, future of Major League Baseball on display on the diamond down in Texas this weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And I'm looking, I think mostly the guy that I'm most looking forward to is on Sunday with Andrew Abbott, because it feels like Andrew Abbott is coming off his first really struggle of a start. He didn't like go crazy and give up a bunch of runs, but he struggled to get to the 4 1/3 that he got. And he didn't factor in the decision because he didn't pitch 5 innings or anything like that. How is he going to bounce back from that? And how is he going to bounce back from that against the lineup that largely most of the guys in this lineup were there for the World Series championship that they got? This is the top of the mountain as far as it were, because in order to be the best, you got to beat the best. How's Andrew Abbott pitch in that situation?
Well, in addition to the pitching matchups, Jeff, I'm kind of looking forward to checking out Globe Life Park, seeing how the Reds perform offensively there. If you had to say who's going to be the next guy to break out for the Reds, Elly's really broken out over the course of the last 4 or 5 days. He's brought it up a notch. Who do you see doing that next? Because if the Reds are going to be successful offensively, there needs to be a couple more guys to help carry the load. Who are you looking at?
It's CES. I mean, he's hitting the ball hard, saw the ball well on Wednesday's game, and he wasn't quite all there in Thursday's game, but honestly, I just chalk that up to Zach Wheeler being Zach Wheeler. That dude has a Cy Young under his belt. Like, he's awesome. So I don't fault CES for that. I think that this could be a big series for him to really get going, especially, this is the kind of time to really get that run production flowing. He's hit the ball really hard. I said the other day, he's still got a 90.9 average exit velocity. So I'm not worried about that. And he's still, barreling things up. He's got an expected slugging percentage of 523. He's ready to break out. So is that your pick, or are you looking at somebody else?
No, I got somebody else. I'm actually going to take a page out of your book. I think Will Benson's going to get on base 6 times during the course of this series. He looked like he was starting to come around a little bit there. He got a homer in this last series. He's going to get the opportunity to play 3 consecutive days against right-handed pitching on the mound. I think he's going to get on base. I think he's going to get a total of 6 on base. I'm going to call that 4 hits, 2 walks, with at least 1 home run in there. That's my prediction for Will Benson, and I think that's a successful series for him to help drive this offense.
I like that. I like that. And I'm going to keep running with that parlay. I mentioned it already, but I'll mention it just again for everybody's benefit. 2+ total bases for Elly, 1 stolen base, 1 or more stolen base, and 1 or more runs scored. Go over to FanDuel, take that all day. I think it's going to hit more often than it will, more often than it won't, and that's going to be positive vibes for you.
Well, that is going to do it. Exactly. That's going to do it for this edition. I am going to be down in Texas, folks. I'll be coming to you from Arlington on Monday's episode. Jeff will still be in Cincinnati, but I'll be down in Arlington. We're going to be talking about this series. Hopefully a series win against the Rangers. Make sure if you haven't done so, you've clicked subscribe. We want to have you here every day. We want you to be an everydayer. If you're listening on your audio feeds, make sure you're subscribed. If you're watching us here on YouTube, make sure you click that notification bell. Make sure you click that like button. Make sure you tell your friends. If you've got some elderly folks in your life that don't know about YouTube, teach it to them. Get them over here watching and talking about the Reds. We want to talk baseball with everybody. Jeff, what can they expect when they come check us out?
They can expect us to be all over the lineups, all over the rotation, all over the transaction moves and the rumblings and the grumblings of, could the Reds make a trade? Probably still a month away from worrying about that, because they can expect us to be locked on Reds every single day.
The stars at night, big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas,